Here we go. It appears that we are now live. So welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, May the 18th. Call the meeting to order and looking to the agenda. Are there any changes or additions?
There are no changes from administration.
Thanks very much. So I'll move the agenda be approved as presented. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We have two delegations with us this afternoon, both of which will be quite interesting. I'm certain of that. First is Canmore Mountain Bike Association, CAMBA, with Wanda and Chad. So join us. The mic is yours, Wanda.
Thank you, Mayor. I am just waiting for my colleague to join us. He will be kicking things off today, so I'm wondering if he's just on his way in.
And maybe Mayor Borrowman, if it's possible, I would just like to say a few words before they begin.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, Andreas.
No, that's okay. Sorry, we weren't clear on that. I just wanted to, again, welcome them and thanks for them coming in. And I just wanted to remind Council that the agreement we have with CAMBA is around Quarry Lake initially. It's something that we've had in place since 2017. And they're here to provide an update to Council, as you are aware. And this is actually the Council that agreed to that initial agreement too. So hopefully it's familiar to most of you. And with that, I will just hand it over to Wanda and Chad to do their presentation. And I'll be here in the wings to provide support.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Andreas. And thank you, Council, for having us here today. My name is Chad Holowatic, and I am the president of the Canmore and Area Mountain Bike Association. Today, I'll be joined by our founder, Wanda Bogdan, to share an update with you all on our town-related activities for 2021. In the spirit of reconciliation, we'd like to begin by acknowledging that we live, we work, and ride on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Ganao, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda nations of Chiniki, Wesley, and Bearspaw, the Métis Nation, Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. As far as an agenda goes, we have some exciting updates on CAMBA's progress and work for 2021 in partnership with the town of Canmore. And this will include the following agenda items. We'll go through a brief introduction of CAMBA and provide an update of the Quarry Lake Park project, and also introduce a trail naming pilot program for 2021. And then Wanda will speak to the Benchlands Bike Park Features Expansion project. With a focus on Canmore and area, CAMBA's mission is to advocate for mountain biking and strive for a sustainable and exciting trail system for all ages. CAMBA was founded in 2016, and CAMBA recognizes the importance of great mountain bike trails for locals and the positive impact mountain bike tourism has as part of the local and visitor economy. We also recognize that all trails are multi-use and have recently created a trails advisory committee to include input from all trail users in our upfront planning and design processes. With respect to membership, as of today, CAMBA is sitting at 678 members. And you can see on this chart that when we started back in 2016, 2017, our first full year, we had 148 members, and we have seen quite significant growth since that time. This is our 5th year of operations. And I also want to point out that we have a wide reach of individuals, families, organizations, and clubs who do have memberships, and that we're proud that many of the members reach beyond mountain biking and include hikers, trail runners, dog walkers, climbers, and horse riders as well. So we have a big mix within our membership. Quarry Lake Park. Yeah, this is a photo of what a traffic jam looks like on the trail. It's become a very well-loved piece of trail infrastructure. And this photo was taken by one of Claire McCann and Bikescape, who likes to take kids out and get them excited about mountain biking and trail riding. As far as location goes, just to remind everyone, the trail that we'll be talking about is located between the triangle that is Three Sisters Parkway, the boundary to the north and to the east, Quarry Lake itself, the TransAlta power line, as well as Peaks Drive at the bottom of that map. In this map, we have a number of sections labeled, and the sections that are in green, sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, are sections that have been completed. Section 6 is, we'll talk about that in an upcoming slide. And the drop line will also be referred to. You can see that at the bottom of your screen, right to the right of section 1 is something that's called the drop line, and we'll show you a little bit more about that right away. A summary of the project. So when Town Council approved the Quarry Lake project in 2017, this included $50,000 to enhance the trails and related infrastructure. The objectives of the project at the time, this was presented back in June of 2017, was to improve connectivity to surrounding riding areas and minimize conflict and draw users out of wildlife corridor. It was also intended to develop a sense of community ownership and discourage the building and use of unauthorized trails. We wanted to create a trail network that is sustainable and makes efficient use of the terrain, and also utilize trail building experience within the community. The idea is that this would be volunteer designed, built, and maintained piece of trail infrastructure. Opportunities that came about that were identified as a result of this project included the installation of signage and engage the community to name the trails, and also to look at future CAMBA and Town of Canmore joint projects. This slide summarizes where we're at to date as far as progress goes. Since the project's inception, we have accumulated 791 volunteer hours. The CAMBA contributions, and call them in-kind contributions, make up a combination of volunteer hours at a specific hourly rate. It also includes donations from, you can see at the bottom right-hand of your screen, a small little mini excavator and an operator that was donated to CAMBA from Ridgely Construction. It also includes any other fill materials that have been donated by Greymont. The town contributions is what has been drawn from the $50,000 called grant that was given to us to manage back in 2017. And to date, we have built 755 meters of trail. That photo at the bottom shows that drop zone I talked about in that map that has been built as far as the trail goes. And as soon as we can, weather permitting here, is finish off those wooden structures that you see, which are called drops. And there's 3 separate drops of different heights for skills progression. And there'll be another drop constructed just off this page to the right of those 3. As far as use goes for Quarry Lake Park, we also purchased trail counters. And in the summer and fall of 2020, the average daily use of this trail was 95 users per day. In the winter, still is used as a fat bike trail, connector trail, and that's around 30 to 35 users per day. Just to put things in perspective, the most popular trail that we have counter data for is at the Nordic Center, which is the Odyssey Trail, which is a relatively new trail. And that trail sees 171 riders per day. So this is quite a popular trail. What work is remaining is, as I mentioned, we want to complete the feature drops that we had at the that we had in that photo. There's just some lumber that needs to be, some cross members that needs to be put on. Phase 2 would connect of the work that this year is section 6, which is 170 meters to connect the trail to the existing trail, which gets you to the Quarry Lake parking lot. And then we have the phase 3, which is ongoing maintenance on the existing trails. And this is something that will happen annually go forward. The other thing that was mentioned as an opportunity was the opportunity to engage the community in the naming of the trail. We already have heard that this trail been referred to affectionately in the community as the Fun Forest. We want to pilot a program, a naming program that we will be working with administration to implement this year, and to get the community involved in besides working on the trail that you see in that photo, get them involved in naming the trail and providing that extra sense of ownership. So we're looking at the connector itself and also that drop feature zone to get the community's input to name the trail this year. And that's it for Quarry Lake Park. We'll take questions at the end of the presentation if there are any. And now I'd like to hand it over to CAMBA's founder, Wanda Bogdane.
Thank you, Chad. So I'm here to give a brief update on the Benchlands Bike Park features expansion. So for some background, we conduct ongoing community engagement through membership and partners, and in doing so have heard a reoccurring theme for years. Coaches have told us year after year that they're concerned as they feel that rider safety is becoming more compromised by Canmore not having specific feature types for mountain bikers of all ages and abilities to practice on. So this puts them at risk when they go to other areas. So the research findings since CAMBA's inception, the surveys have shown a high volume of requests for more technical terrain features, or what is commonly known as TTFs. These include drops, which are commonly found in skill development areas and most other riding locations. You saw Chad refer to a small little area at the end of the Quarry Lake Park, and these are actually very common to have through most trails, but they do require a very different skill set than, let's say, something like a jump. So in this year's survey, which had 643 responses, the second highest need was identified as technical trail features. And back in 2015, Council had approved the Open Space and Trails Plan. And in this plan, there are outstanding recommendations. So we aim to help the community and the town in making good on a small project this year that supports those recommendations. So throughout the plan, these recommendations indicated the intention to enhance cycling facilities in the Benchlands and Cougar Creek area, with a key focus on including more advanced technical trails with technical terrain features. The Open Space and Trails Plan also encouraged the adoption of Whistler Trail Standards. And in 2003, a set of standards were created by the regional municipality of Whistler and have become the best practices for mountain bike trail construction and classification in Canada. As well, the open space principles were articulated in this plan, and that led to some key strategies, including clustering. So clustering or grouping of facilities is not only desirable for users and coaches, but also offers more efficient operations for the town staff. In preparation for the Open Space and Trails Plan, the town conducted community engagement, which we all probably remember. Now, this showed a clear desire from the community to have more stunts or features for learning and enhancing skills. This feedback wholly aligns with the comments that CAMBA has received in its surveys and validates that the desire has not gone away and stands today. Similar to the outstanding recommendations from the Open Space and Trails Plan, there are outstanding directions from the 2016 Recreational Master Plan. We can see that same themes that were articulated here around skill development, community needs, and to expand the bike park were articulated in this plan as well. So the area to be expanded is tucked away in the woods, right behind the Bike Skills Park jumps. For anyone unfamiliar, this park is located just off the Benchlands Trail, as seen here to the east of the cemetery. The cluster of features will be drops, which are very different from jumps as mentioned, and they need sloped terrain. So an existing trail will already, an existing trail will be used for egress from the features, which means this expansion will only require the addition of one short trail to help lead riders in. The terrain in the area is perfect for an expansion of this nature, and let me tell you why. Here you can see the specific expansion area, and thanks to the impeccable natural spacing that Mother Nature's given us, not one tree will be removed. This project will be similar to previous work that CAMBA has done with the town of Canmore, except this time it will be fully funded by CAMBA with a separate budget different from Quarry Lake Park. There is also no operational requirements requested of the town beyond oversight. But similar to Quarry Lake Park, CAMBA will design, build, and maintain this features area, and we will undertake the agreement similar to, or an agreement similar to what was done in the past with other projects. For a bit more context, this small project is not a trail. I just want to be clear on that. It's a distinct area within a section of features that already exists within the park and that will be provided for all riders of all levels. And adding these to the Bike Skills Park won't take much time because it's a small project. So weather permitting, we're hoping to have everything done by the end of June. And CAMBA has sourced an experienced and respected builder to construct the features who will work under a dedicated CAMBA crew leader and a skilled team of local volunteers. All features will adhere to the industry's respected Whistler Trail standards, which I previously mentioned. And in addition, CAMBA's standard operating procedures, occupational health and safety policy, WCB insurance, and the town of Canmore safety standards will guide the work. And I'd like to thank you for having us join you today. We really do appreciate the chance to give an update on the 2021 activities. If there are any questions, we're happy to answer those.
Great. Thanks very much, both of you, for the presentation. And I'm sure there'll be questions. I have a few, but firstly, I really appreciate the very detailed overview, particularly of what CAMBA's accomplished up at Quarry Lake Park. I well recall the discussions leading up to this work, and it wasn't straightforward in the community, the conversations. I have a couple of questions specific to the last bit, the Benchlands Bike Park expansion. And I guess this might be for Andreas, but what's the current zoning of that piece of land?
Well, it's municipally owned, and I believe it's MR.
MR?
Yeah. So it'd be a permitted use.
Great, perfect. And remembering the involvement of the community from the Benchlands neighborhood when the first project was done, and we'll all remember what that conversation was like. Has there been opportunities at this time or yet for engagement with the Benchlands community around this proposal?
Mayor Borman, to my knowledge, I believe that was undertaken through the process of the open space and trails plans and the recreational master plan, but Andreas can probably elaborate better.
So, Mayor Borman, are you talking about when the jump park that's in there right now, or are you talking about when the flow track was identified?
Yeah, I guess it's the flow track that I was thinking about. And there was quite a pushback from residents in that area, and maybe I'm raising this without any real cause for concern. I'm just curious. There's likely to be input from the public on, well, there always is on anything like this.
Yeah, I think what's also important to highlight here is that they're two very different projects. The flow trail was more out in the open area and began from the top of the hill. So I think some of the concerns raised by the public is that it would be distracting for the drivers, that there would be shuttling, etc. This is a very different project. It's really just an expansion off the existing park. If council wishes, they can go down and take a look. I needed to personally just confirm this, but when you stand on the pathway right beside the jump park, you wouldn't be able to see the cyclists in there. So there's no distraction. It's an expansion of what's already there. And like Wanda has identified, it fits with the two master plans that we currently have in place, which would have gone out to the public and sought their input.
Great, That's reassuring, and it looks like a great project. So look forward to seeing it move forward. I have a question around the Quarry Lake work. Couple of questions. So has CAMBA been active with other partners in the valley around trail design or building, or only with the town at this point?
Yeah, we've been, CAMBA's been active with Three Sisters Mountain Village on the trails that are on their land. We've just finished last year putting up signage, identifying wildlife corridors, wayfinding to keep people on the trails, and also maintaining them, removing bear attractants, all that kind of thing. We also have been working with Friends of Kananaskis on improvements at the Montaigne Traverse area, helping out with projects at the Nordic Center, and we'll continue to be working on Alberta Parks land as well.
Excellent, great, thank you. I just also have a question around the proposal to name the trails, and I'm sure, Andreas, you've been working with CAMBA in regards to the town policy, and that will be observed in this process.
Yes, you're correct, Mayor Bowman. The intent is to ensure that we follow the municipal naming policy or any other policy that would be impacted by how the pilot project rolls out.
Excellent. I'm looking to see if other members of council have questions for CAMBA, for either Chad or Wanda. Go ahead, Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Mayor Barman. Thank you for your presentation. That section of the Quarry Lake Trail that you showed that was complete, the green section, there's a section that is not complete. What is the condition of that part of the trail, and is it accessible now?
Yeah, the condition, that last segment, I think it was 170 meters, segment 6. No, there's nothing that exists there right now. It's right now the trail ends in that opening, that meadow opening area, and then cyclists are going another route about to connect to the older pre-existing trails. That section kind of veers off to the I guess it would be to the east, and that would require full new build, similar to what happened with all the existing sections that are being used right now.
Okay, so there isn't actually anything there yet.
No.
We're working towards that. Okay.
No.
All right.
Sorry, Councillor Sanford. Just to clarify, though, it does connect to eventually to an existing trail. There was that white trail on the map.
Okay.
That's existing. Yeah.
I know I've sort of been in there, and I just can't quite picture it, what the completed section is and how it relates to what I've walked on in the past. So anyway, we will see that. Is that going to be complete this summer?
That's our intent. The progress on that trail was very slow at the beginning. That area has quite deep organics, spongy moss that you need to remove to get to dirt and to something that has some kind of a foundation on it. So we're similar to what we used for the drop area, is to incorporate the use of a small machine, and that sped up it significantly. And yeah, so that's the intent, is to do that when conditions are dry. So probably later summer, we want to get that drop zone finished and open. A lot of people don't even know it exists. We've kind of finished that late last season, and people ask, where is this thing you're talking about? And it's well hidden, which is good. It allows us to finish it.
And I just wanted to ask if Wanda could put up that section of the bike park at Benchlands, and which part we're talking about, the yellow part or the purple part?
Thank you, Councillor Sanford. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's just tucked away in here, in these little lines here. Those are going to be the actual specific lines. So this will be the beginner section here, and that will really be from a small bump in the dirt. And this is where it's really important for the skills to be developed at a progressive level. And it's something that if we do have drops here, We've not seen them done formally and done professionally. So we really do want to make sure that the right standard is applied for safety purposes. And so this green will go from a dirt bump up to probably a 1 foot, and all of these will have these really lovely opportunities for progression and scalability. And then we'll go into here, which is the intermediate area. And that's where things will get a little bit more rise, a little bit more structure. And then over here, we'll have the advanced area. And the terrain, it's almost like Mother Nature just said, hi, would you like this here? It's actually perfect, because the terrain has to have such a slope for transitioning off of the feature to have that safe egress. And each of these slopes were just laid out perfectly. And again, with the trees being so nicely spaced out, once you get in there, we don't have to move any trees. And there's already this existing access trail that goes right to the parking lot. So the only trail we actually have to put in is this guy right up here. And again, it will be very tucked in. You won't even see any of this happening because the trees are quite dense down here. But as you can see through the photo, there's a glading that's already happened however many years ago. And just the way that the trees have grown creates that natural space. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. That's more clear. And the little black dotted lines, that would be a trail system.
This is the existing trail here on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new trail is just here. But I'd like to be clear, these are only to access these features. So there's no concern around community access or any disturbance to houses or anything to that effect. It's only accessible from the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Sort of a general question. I'm curious. CAMBA focuses on mountain bike trails, on featured trails. I understand that, but does CAMBA do any work within the community around promoting safe sharing of multi-use trails? Can you just briefly describe what you do with that?
Yeah, CAMBA's been is quite involved with. We recognize that all trails are multi-use. I mean, there's these drops that we're talking about. The Benchland Skill Parks, for example, is an example of it's bike only, but that's very small percentage of the trails in the town, TSMB, Alberta Parks, Alberta Public Lands, et cetera. So, CAMBA advocates for mountain biking, and that's been our mission. But we also strive for a vibrant trail system for all users of all abilities. And that's something that when we're conducting our operations, it's always something that we take into account with the construction of a trail and with the community, the trail user engagement. There's been instances where we've had to deal with some conflict resolutions with other trail users up on the bench through signage and through awareness and education, and then measuring the success with counters. We feel like there's been success in that area. It also prompted us to start the new Trails Advisory Committee that we're kicking off this year to have, good example is we're in the process of designing and building the Enduro Freeride Trail, which we just received a provincial grant for. We have from the very beginning been working with the Alberta Rocky Mountain Disc Golf Association to ensure that this trail that we're proposing is going through an area that doesn't change the experience of disc golf and maybe improves it. So it's working with all users that use trails, and that's something that we've always done, potentially informally, and now we're looking at formalizing it more by involving RMCC and by involving the Bow Valley Riding Association, not on saying this is what we're doing, what do you think? More on our approach is this is what we're thinking of doing, this is what we're thinking about planning, what do you think? And getting other users more involved upfront before the budget is set and before the plan is put forward. And the Canmore trail culture, the running community uses all the trails that mountain bikers use, and having them have input when we're planning that's critical to us, and that's something we'll be going forward with as CAMBA's new mandate to include all users.
Great, thank you for that answer. Councillor Comfort.
Sorry to be late to the game. I have an echo going on. CAMBA's always been great in doing their trail consultation, very collaborative. I just wondered, do you have any wildlife courses or issues or like that?
I can take this one. Councillor Comfort, we work really closely with WildSmart, with Alberta Parks and a number of different individuals who have knowledge, bear safety and more through Kim Titchener to ensure that we've got the most current and up-to-date practices for our users. And we actively promote every spring and throughout the summer, particularly when we have bears in certain areas, we actively promote the safe recreation recommendations and best practices for being around wildlife. So that's, of course, bear collie, bear spraying. For some, kind of depends on, we even give details on the location of the trail around a corner to make sure that there's not blind spot surprises. And we actually even go so far as including 2 questions, and have since our inception on our survey, to find out what the uptake is for people who mountain bike to bear call and carry bear spray. We are incredibly thrilled to see that it's over the 90% mark, and it continues to increase every single year. From what we understand from the folks that we work with in those expert niche areas, is that this is a really high uptake for our user group. So we're pleased with that, but that doesn't have us sit on our laurels. It's really important to us.
That's great.
Councillor Seeley, last question, I think.
Thank you, Mayor Borman. I'd like to commend CAMBA on the work that you're doing, and thank you for doing it. You mentioned the open space and trails plan and working on Three Sisters and Montaigne. Is there any other purpose-built trails in CAMBA's vision currently in the town of Canmore?
The purpose-built trails in our vision right now, there is, I think right now we have yet to sit down with Andreas and see what other projects that we can help with in the future. We'll finish what we're working on right now, but probably would be, and maybe Andreas, you can answer that, because I know we're planning to get together to look at some planning in the future. So maybe it's best for you to take that.
Yeah, and they're very much early in the planning stage. Certainly, Councillor Seeley, as I think the first thing is CAMBA has, you can see certainly a few projects that they are a priority for them, that they want to begin with and complete. And as they're working through that, we have other ideas that we want to sit down and talk to them about. And once they've been flushed out, we will certainly be back in front of council, or at least through a service area update, provide council with some more updates about what those future projects could look like.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, thank you both, Mr. Holowatic and Ms. Bogdan, for joining us today. I have to say I think the partnership between the town and CAMBA has been really successful, and I'm so happy that it's worked out this well. I do remember the conversations earlier at an earlier stage of this, and yeah, CAMBA brings real value to the work town's doing with trails. So thank you and your members.
Thank you, Council. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your support.
Yeah. With that, we'll move on to the second delegation, which is Stormy Lake Consulting. We're working with the Tourism Task Force to do community engagement. I'm presuming Ms. DeSoto's popped up to do an intro.
Yes, I thought I would do that. For the rest of council, I know Mayor Borman, you and Councillor Seeley have both met Philip Coppard and Nicole Ferris, who are, Philip's the principal with Stormy Lake Consulting, and Nicole is our project director and strategist and key point of contact. But Stormy Lake is the consulting firm that was selected by the Tourism Task Force to assist with leading the community-wide engagement process around a sustainable tourism framework for Canmore. And we're really excited to be working with them. They have great depth of experience working in the tourism field and have worked with other major tourism destinations across Alberta and BC, and bring a real level of expertise and research and strategy and thought process to development of a framework. So they're here to present their framework outline and next steps. And I think you'll find it very intriguing. So welcome, Philip and Nicole.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks
Lisa.
very much for being here. Looking forward to hearing what you have to share with the council.
Perfect. And you guys can see my screen, I trust?
Yes.
Excellent. Lisa did a lovely job of articulating our experience with destinations from Manitoba to Vancouver Island. We just wanted to add on to that it's not just about working with the places, but all of the tourism related businesses within a place that make up the whole economy. So either brewery, the municipality, museums, Indigenous communities, retail locations, skiing, mountain biking, as we just heard. Those are all really important parts of it, and we've worked with all of those groups as well. Working with the task force, we've developed a set of guiding principles for the engagement work as it goes forward. One of them focuses on building the framework itself, in that we want to build a sustainable tourism economy that enhances Canmore's long-term community health. We want to ensure social connection, environmental sensitivity, and economic viability work together to address the needs of the community and visitors. And we want to strengthen relationships with neighboring Indigenous communities. So that's what we're looking to build the overall framework around. For the engagement process that I'll share with you in a second, we really want to challenge the people we engage with to think boldly, to listen actively and engage thoughtfully, to create brave spaces that encourage respectful dialogue, and to offer every resident the opportunity to be informed and involved in some way or other in the project. And I'll show you what those look like in just a second. As we look at this idea of a community's embracing and support for tourism, we see four key stakeholders. There's obviously the tourism industry is very important. The community is essential, but to be quite honest, overlooked in many places. So it's fantastic to see it leading the process here. We think the environment itself is a stakeholder that we need to make sure their voice is heard at the table, and we bring their perspective to all aspects. And then visitors, who we may not directly engage in how we're doing it today, but will be centered to our minds as we look moving forward. And it's a very interconnected web that puts all those people together. As we're thinking about our engagement processes, one of the cornerstones of it is a set of workshops that we'll put together. And in hopefully, or we had hoped we'd be able to do some in person, but given the current COVID restrictions, we've actually migrated all of them online. But we bring together diverse groups of people to work together, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, to address challenges related to the tourism framework. So it's not a typical open house where we get to speak. It's different than sitting at a bunch of round tables and discussing. It's actually working on exercises together. And while that's happening, we're conducting a real-time analysis of what's discussed at each table. So before the session ends, we can present back what we heard. And that for us is very important for a couple of reasons. One of them is it deeply honors the commitment people have made to come to our engagement. A frustration people might have is they talk, they go away, and they're never sure what happens with it. So in this way, we honor that. Second, they will hear their perspective articulated in the report back, and that's validating that they have in fact been heard by the process. But they'll also hear different perspectives they might not have considered, which opens their minds to the possibilities there's other ways to look at this than what they thought. And so we really have that balance of I've been heard, and yet I know there's other people involved. And those are the top 2 pictures here, the in-person and the online version. We also are working with the Indigenous communities to get them involved. We're not telling them how to get involved, we're asking them how they would like to be involved. And so we're just at the early stages of that process of going out, meeting with the communities and saying, we're doing this, in what ways would it make the most sense for you to participate? Hopefully some of them will want to come to our workshops, others might just want to answer the survey, others might have a different thing they want to do, but it's not for us to dictate their involvement, it's to invite them to participate on their terms. And then finally, around the middle of July, we'll be sending out an online survey to everyone in Canmore to comment on the principles of the framework as they're being developed. We're going to write the survey based on what we're hearing in the first set of workshops. So it's not just a standard set of questions, but something very custom to the process. So in terms of timing, we've started the communications process. We're working with the Stormy Nakota. We've started that approach, as I've said, and hopefully conclude their sort of participation, quote unquote, by the end of August. We're doing a few telephone interviews to set us up. That's just started. We have 4 workshops scheduled starting on, Nicole's at the 7th of June, around then?
Yeah, so it'll be June 7th, June 22nd, July 7th, and July 22nd.
So roughly every 2 weeks, we're doing at the different times of the day, different days of the week, just to make it as easy as possible for people to participate. We're very excited. We've been invited into the social studies classroom in a couple of classes at the high school so we can engage youth in this particular project. So we're giving them a slightly shorter version of fundamentally exactly the same set of questions to get their perspective. And we'll be able to share that at the further engagements as they come together. The online survey in July. Then it all goes into the black box of thinking in the rest of the summer. And we'll be in September, October, developing the actual framework, coming back to the task force, and then coming back to you guys to share what we've done. So that's the overall process. And where I'd like to end today is, we would really like to invite you individually to participate in these workshops and to encourage people you know to participate as well. It is a wonderful way to engage with the community and really see the issue from many different perspectives. We try to get as much diversity in every small group as we can, and that becomes very powerful, and it sends a wonderful message that you're there and contributing. So that's our invitation and request of you to be part of that. And I'm not saying come to all 4, but pick one that works and please come to that. Nicole, did I miss anything, or are we good to throw it open to questions?
That was it.
Okay, perfect. So may we answer any of your questions?
You bet. Thanks very much. And just on that last invitation to councillors, I'm curious if you would envision the benefit being to have councillors fully engaged in the conversation, or there to listen and hear?
Mayor, that's a great question. And I would say for 2 different reasons, we embrace the full participation. One of them is you're really only able to listen to a very small group of people and not the group as a whole, the way these are structured. So you don't get the same value out of the listening. But it also really sends a message to the community that you're there working and listening to them on the project. And so that's a lovely part of the contribution to do as well. And the third part is, I can pretty much guarantee you'll be surprised and delighted by some of what you hear at the table. And incredibly frustrated by other things. I'm sure you've seen that before.
Yeah.
So thank you.
My slight concern is that I have a sense that in situations like that, the councillor perspective tends to be sort of take over, and the members of the public that are there are, you know, we talk all the time and we make the decisions, and so I'm always hesitant to really get too deeply involved in those discussions for fear of stifling the input that I'm there to hear.
But we're very aware that in every group there can be power structures that shape the conversation. So in your case, it could be councillors or yourself having a different expertise than others. So we're very careful that we start these workshops kind of not necessarily negating, but demonstrating the conversation is about your expertise, your role, your background. You're sort of more there as people having a conversation. And so that's very much built into the design of what happens. And because these are exercises you're working on, it's not really like one opinion is better than another. They're really building on each other. So we've put a lot of thought into constructing something that addresses what you said, because it is a real limitation to a lot of engagement, is that kind of structure. So we had the mayor of Whitecourt sitting at a table with the first openly gay woman in the history of their high school, having an amazing conversation, 2 worlds that would almost never meet and come together. And that's, you know, I'm not going to promise that kind of engagement, but that's really what we're trying to create, is places where that can happen. And neither of them had a more expert opinion than the other on that particular issue. And we were actually talking about the contribution of forestry to the local economy. So
great. And you know, in thinking about it, council, this isn't something that's going to ultimately come back to council for approval. So it's not like we would be trying to influence anything in that way. We'll be receiving it as information, essentially. So regardless, I'm sure you'll see a very strong representation from members of council at the workshops. I'm sure of that. The other question I have this time is around the format of the online workshops. And was I understanding that they're going to primarily be smaller, like breakout groups rather than in one big, large forum?
Yeah, Nicole, do you want to go through that a bit?
Yeah, of course. So we host our virtual workshops through Zoom, so a platform like this. And how it's set up is everyone will meet in the main room, which we're in right now. We have capped it at about 100 participants per virtual workshop. That can fluctuate. We can increase that if need be. But what that allows is for the first 10 minutes or so, we meet as a group, we go through the ground rules together, explain why we're here, what we're going to be doing. We do a couple exercises to get people comfortable with annotation and various tools that Zoom offers that they'll use throughout the various exercises. And then at that point, we'll move everyone into breakout groups. And so we cap the breakout groups at about 8 people per group. And each of those breakout groups will have a facilitator. And that facilitator will be someone from our Stormy Lake team. It might be someone from the task force. We've asked them to volunteer if they want to be a note taker or facilitator. Potentially some people from the town as well. And that role is really just to facilitate the exercises. And so they'll move the group through the different exercises. They'll take notes along the way as well, which feeds into that report back that Philip spoke about that gets done at the end. And so it's really just working in groups of 8. And then at some point, about midway through, we meet again as a whole group together in the main room. We do a couple of exercises together, more fun annotation exercises, and then push back into the same breakout group for the rest of the session. And at the very end, we meet again in the main group, and someone from the Stormy Lake team will present a 10-minute report back of what we've heard from each of the individual breakout groups throughout the 3-hour session.
That sounds great. Yeah, I know, I'm sure we've all experienced this, but in a really large group, people tend not to talk. Whereas in the small breakout rooms with 6 or 8 people, my experience has been really good conversations in those smaller breakout rooms.
Yeah,
So that sounds, yeah, that's very encouraging. Are there questions at this time from members of council for Stormy Lake? Seeing none, so you'll be sending more information regarding registering for the sessions. How long did you say the sessions would last?
They're a 3-hour workshop, which sounds like a lot. We used to run them at 2.5 hours and people said, no, I didn't have enough time to talk. So we pushed them up to 3. And we're actually getting higher satisfaction ratings online than we did in person. So it's about a 92% satisfaction. And it's a workshop they've never had before online.
And they're spaced, or they'll be organized in different time periods during the day, so fit a lot of people's schedules.
Yeah, daytime, evening, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, roughly 2 weeks apart.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you can register through the mycanmore.ca website. There's a specific page for this initiative that speaks to all the different ways in which citizens can share their voice. So there is a link to register for the workshop through that platform as well.
And Mayor, we've drafted sort of a template to let people know about this within your own circles that we could distribute to council as well, that you could just adapt and send out to people. So it's got all the formal details in there and the timing and that kind of thing.
Excellent.
I actually said that to council yesterday. So
Sally. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, it's there waiting for you.
Great. I'm sure I saw it, Sally. Thanks for being here to present. I've certainly, as a member of the task force, I'm up to speed with all of the planning and been involved in the conversations leading up to this. So it's really important now that the rest of council gets fully engaged in this work. So I appreciate you being here to share the plans. And we'll look forward to seeing you again the next task force meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you,
All right.
Councillor, for your attention and time. Good luck with the rest of your day.
You bet. Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. With that, I will look to the minutes of the April 20th committee of the whole meeting. Are there errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll move they be adopted as presented. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And there's a verbal report, item D1, Citizen Perspective Survey, to be presented by Ipsos. So Ms. Dinaj, you'll introduce the speaker.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Borroman, and good afternoon, Council. So this is the fourth time that we have worked with Ipsos to conduct a random telephone survey to assess citizens' attitudes and opinions about the town of Canmore and to understand the day-to-day experiences of local citizens. And the last time we did this survey was 4 years ago, and that was in the spring of 2017. So that brings us to today. So as you recall, on February 23rd of this year, the survey was a fairly last minute addition to the 2021 budget. And I started working with Ipsos right after that to update our 2017 questions. And after a review by the GMs and the CAO, we removed a few questions in order to create some time to ask some new questions. And then the final survey was ready to launch on March 23rd. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to Erin Rolston, who will review the methodology and survey results with you. And Erin is with Ipsos. And just a final note that the results will be available on our website shortly after this meeting, and I'll include a link to those in today's council clips.
Thanks, Ms. Dinaj, and welcome, Ms. Rolston. Oh, you're still muted. There you go.
Borman. I will share my screen. And can everyone see that?
Yeah, we see your whole window, not just the presentation.
Ms. Rolston, it might be just as simple as pressing start show or start slideshow. That might help.
Sure. Did that work?
No, we don't see anything, unfortunately, this time.
You'll just need to share your screen again.
Okay. And share.
And then one more thing, if you go up to display settings and switch view, there you go, swap presenter view.
Here we go. Perfect.
Any better?
Yeah, that looks great. Beautiful
Thanks for your
mountains. Where are they?
patience. Thank you for your patience. We are pleased to continue to support the town of Canmore with the Citizen Perspective Survey that Robin mentioned we've done for the last 3 iterations, and have a number of different things to go over with you today, and would certainly invite any comments or questions as we go through the results so we can address them at the time. And just a little bit of background in terms of the methodology. As Robin mentioned, we have done this survey in 2017 and in 2014. And so we can see some trends that have occurred over time. which we do identify in this PowerPoint report with some statistical arrows that are up and down. So with the statistical methodology, if it is meaningfully different, then we'll see an arrow next to it. So it's kind of easy to see where true differences have occurred. We conducted a telephone survey, as we have done in the past, with 300 residents of the town of Canmore. And it was about 20 minutes in duration. And we also allowed residents to participate in an online version of the survey that was through an open link that was on the website. And we had 332 responses to that as well. Because the sampling methodology is different, the telephone survey was conducted among a random and representative sample according to Statistics Canada census data. So it does look and feel like the residents in the community, whereas the online portion of the engagement was just representative of those who chose to participate. So we don't put those results side by side because they're not apples to apples, but we do have a report for each so that you do have the full range of feedback and engagement that was provided. I also, in this presentation today, have some municipal norms that Ipsos has collected over time. And these norms are based on 26 municipalities, mainly in Western Canada. And they date over the last 5 years. So some of it is pre-COVID. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the municipal issue agenda. But before we do, I want to just put into context that any survey is a snapshot in time. And our survey began on the 23rd, which was also the last day of the public hearings about the Three Sisters Mountain Village hearings. And so it was quite prominent in the community at the time. And you will see this in the results. So when we asked people, what is the most important issue facing your community that should receive the greatest attention from your local leaders, 62% mentioned growth and development, specifically the Three Sisters development, that there's too much development, and just development in general. And as you can see, since the last survey wave in 2017, this has gone up 34 points. Again, it was at the same time that the public hearings were taking place. So again, very prominent in the community at large. Transportation, 20% of residents mentioned this, and this has also significantly increased by 13 points. Some residents feeling traffic congestion and talking about parking issues or lack of parking tickets. Now, while growth and development and transportation have increased on the issue agenda, affordable housing has gone down 16 points since 2017, but still remains fairly prominent as the third most important issue facing the community. Wildlife management is next at 13%. And has also significantly decreased since 2017. Infrastructure is next, which includes road maintenance and just overall improvements to infrastructure. The environment is mentioned by 6% of residents, remaining stable, no statistical differences since 2017. And the economy is mentioned by 5%, and that is also statistically on par from the last survey wave. And municipal government services rounds it out at 3%. Okay, so
I'm sorry, could you go back to the last slide? It was just
absolutely
something that jumped out at me.
Please go ahead, Mayor Borman.
Right. So the wildlife management corridor is the change from 2017 is it was referenced 10% less than 4 years ago. Is that what I'm reading?
That's correct.
It's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have some tracking and some trends to show you about residents' views of their quality of life in the town of Canmore. And here, as you can see, 98% of residents say that the overall quality of life is good. 64% indeed say it's very good. And this is higher than the norms that we've collected from other municipalities at 95%. So clearly the quality of life is very much appreciated in the town of Canmore. We also asked how they felt their quality of life may have changed over the past 3 years. And we had 9% say that it's improved, which is lower than 2017. 53% say that it stayed the same, and 38% say that it's worsened, which has increased since 2017. With respect to this, we have some norms. Again, they're based on the last 5 years. But with some of the other municipalities that we work with, we do see a similar trend as what we see here for the town of Canmore. Likely COVID related, and particularly in Alberta, with our economic conditions in various areas, we have seen the quality of life. The score of worsened has increased and improved has decreased. So it's not unlike other patterns that we see. We did also ask, so among that 38% of residents who say their quality of life has worsened, we asked them why. And we took their responses that were given to us in their own words, and we coded them into like-minded themes. And again, you see this issue of growth and development come up. Too many tourists, there's too many visitors, population growth is too fast, it's too busy, too much development, and we're losing our small town community feel. That was the main theme that came out of reasons why they felt their quality of life had deteriorated. The economy was another important issue of why they feel their quality of life had deteriorated, but to a lesser extent than it was in 2017. Traffic was another issue. The COVID-19 pandemic, of course, also emerged. Money being spent on what they felt were unnecessary projects, poor governance and leadership, and insufficient recreational amenities. In terms of safety, residents of Canmore feel extremely safe, 99%. And that includes 69% who say they feel very safe. And this is even stronger than our municipal norms at 93%. So clearly a sentiment of safety is prevalent. And then again, we have some tracking data for you here on the overall perceived performance of the town. And this slide here shows the satisfaction with the town of Canmore overall, including council and administration, at 73%, just slightly lower than the norm at 79%, and fairly similar to 2017. When we asked specifically about town administration, satisfaction was at 75%, so slightly higher, and slightly lower than our municipal norm of 81%. And also identical to the measure that we received in 2017. And town council has also remained stable since the last measure in 2017 with 70% satisfaction, which is statistically on par with our norm at 73%. And you can be happy because the most recent city of Calgary was at 61%, so that's much higher. We also asked about a series of municipal programs and services that the town of Canmore offers. And we asked first about how important each of these programs and services are. And then we asked how satisfied they are with the delivery of those programs and services. But first we asked about overall satisfaction. So as a whole, how satisfied are they with the overall level and quality of services and programs provided by the town? And we've got a very strong score at 88%. You can see that this has gone down a little bit since 2017, but still very strong, 88%. And it's very similar to the norm of 90%, right on par. And when we get into the specifics of importance, of course, everything is important to residents. So we see 100% say fire and rescue services are important. 100% say parks, trails, and other green spaces are important. 99% say recycling, garbage, and compost collection are important. 99% for street cleaning, including snow and ice removal. 98% for police services. And 98% for water and wastewater services. 98% for emergency preparedness. 97% for maintenance and upgrading of streets and sidewalks. 96% for traffic management. 95% for land use and community planning. I have another set of programs and services to show you, but here, fire and rescue services are even more important than they were 4 years ago, as is street cleaning, including snow and ice removal. So those have risen in importance over the past 4 years. So the next series in ranked order here is 94% say that the town's response to COVID-19 is important. 93% for community events, 92% for recreation facilities and programs, 89% for vital homes, 89% for animal control and bylaw services, 84% for social supports, 82% for free local transit, 78% say the pedestrian-only Main Street in response to COVID-19 is important, and 70% say the public art program is important. And here, there's no statistical differences since the last survey wave in 2017. So then we asked them about their satisfaction with all of those programs and services. So the highest satisfaction ratings were received for fire and rescue services, 95%, water and wastewater services at 94%, community events at 94%, police services provided by the RCMP at 91%, recycling, garbage, and compost collection. We got to add compost collection this year at 91%. 90% satisfaction with parks, trails, and other green spaces. 89% satisfaction with free local transit. 88% satisfaction with recreation facilities and programs. 84% for emergency preparedness. And 84% for the public art program. And as you can see on the right-hand side there, there's no arrows. So that has remained very stable since the last survey wave in 2017.
I'm sorry, would you go back one slide again?
Absolutely.
Thank you. One slide before this, sorry. The importance of, so this slide is indicating that COVID-19 response was very important, obviously. But did the survey ask satisfaction with how the town managed the COVID response?
Absolutely, Mayor Borman.
Am I getting ahead of you?
Always 2 steps ahead, Mayor Borman.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you.
So I think this is a great score. We've done a lot of work in the COVID space with other municipalities, with other levels of government, and 83% are satisfied with the town's response to COVID-19.
Great,
So that's
thank you.
a strong number. 79% are satisfied with the pedestrian-only Main Street. In response to COVID-19, 77% satisfied with animal control and bylaw, 73% with street cleaning, including snow and ice removal, 70% are satisfied with social supports, 66% with the maintenance and upgrading of streets and sidewalks, 56% with vital homes, and the two lower ones where there is a minority level of satisfaction is with land use and community planning and with traffic management. And you can see that traffic management has really significantly declined by 20 points since 2017.
Not surprising given what's going on these days. The COVID-19 response, that question wasn't broken down into individual aspects of the COVID-19 response?
No, it was an umbrella statement, yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome, Mayor. So we do an additional step. So we pit importance against satisfaction. And we look at this quadrant grid that then identifies what are the town of Canmore's primary strengths when it comes to municipal programs and services. And where might there be some opportunities for improvement to maybe better meet residents' expectations? The one thing that's really notable, I think, about this chart is look how many strengths there are. There are so many. This is where these programs and services are highly important to residents, and they rate you highly for satisfaction in these areas. And they include fire and rescue services, water and wastewater services, community events, police services, parks and trails, garbage recycling and compost collection, emergency preparedness, and the COVID-19 response also emerges in that quadrant. So this is where you are meeting and or exceeding residents' expectations. And there are definitely a lot of areas in there. So I think it's a very positive report. On the other hand, there were 4 areas that are highly important to residents, but satisfaction is a bit lower. And those include traffic management, land use and community planning, maintenance and upgrading of streets and sidewalks, and street cleaning, including snow and ice removal, although that's creeping closer to the primary strength. But those would be the 4 areas where importance exceeds satisfaction.
Yeah, I'm curious about the rating on the vital homes, and I noticed that in an earlier slide. Is there any sense of what's informing the response to the questions around vital homes?
Sure, I think the programs and services that emerge in this quadrant, which we label as secondary opportunities, are those that may not be used by as many residents, and so not as familiar with them. So maybe not a true reflection of how well these programs and services are being delivered, but rather a lack of familiarity.
Yeah, that would make sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. So taxation. We also tracked some questions on taxation. And the first one was overall value for the tax dollars. And here we've got 84% who feel that they receive good value for the tax dollars that they provide. And that has remained strong and steady over the last 3 survey waves, and is even a little bit higher than the norms that we receive from other municipalities. So that's a great result. We had added a new question in the survey this year, And that was considering all the services that you know the town of Canmore offers, name up to 2 services that you would propose to spend more on to receive an increase in service. And the main themes that came up here was parks, recreation, and culture, which received 31% of mentions, and just more parks, more recreation programs, and more recreation centers and trails. The next theme that came up was municipal government services. And most specifically, they pointed to snow removal, waste and garbage management, composting, wildlife management, and recycling. Social supports received 24% of mentions, and that was primarily around affordable housing. Transportation received 14% of mentions, and more specifically about traffic congestion and public transit and bus schedules. And infrastructure received 12% of mentions, and most prominently with respect to road maintenance. Emergency services received 5% of mentions, and land use and development, 4% of mentions. So the next set of questions were about communications and engagement from the town of Canmore. We had an overall rating of town communications, and we've got 3/4 or just over 3/4, 76% who rate it as good. That is just on par with our norm of 77%. And we do see that it's dipped a little bit since 2017. But again, I'll put this in context with communications in a time of crisis. Residents, citizens everywhere at all levels of government are seeking communications from their governments to a greater degree and have higher expectations during this time. So although you might see a dip here, bear in mind that's in context and it follows similar patterns to what we're seeing in other municipalities. So what do they want to know about? What about the content of the information that they require? Well, they want to know about community planning, land use, and developments, 30%. They want to know about community updates and what's new. They want to know about roads and transportation and transit. They want to know about public and council meetings, community and special events. They want to know about municipal budgets and municipal programs and services. Bylaws are a little bit lower. So is COVID-19 related information, followed by emergency services, parks, recreation, arts and culture, environment, and then some just saying we just want transparent and clear information.
Can I ask a question in this regard or for this slide? Was there any questions or when your team was interviewing the people, was there any inquiry around how familiar the respondents are with the existing messaging that we provide? I mean, looking at particularly at the community planning and land use development information, 30% suggest they would like to see more information provided there. Do you know how familiar they were with the information that the town has been providing through our website and other mechanisms?
Yes, Mayor, that's a very good question. It's not one that we had included in the 2021 survey. And Robin, I'm not sure if it had been included in any previous surveys, but we don't have a measure of familiarity, no.
No.
Okay, thank you.
So in addition to wanting to identify what type of information they required, we also wanted to know how it would be best for the town of Canmore to communicate information to them. Newspaper is still the #1 source, although we've seen that significantly decline since 2017. That's followed by email, social media, which has notably increased, town website, regular mail, radio, printed brochures or pamphlets, higher proportion of residents wanting to be able to text the town as well. Contact by telephone, billboards and posters are a bit lower. And of course, open houses and public consultations aren't really taking place right now in our environment. Town council meetings, virtual town halls was something new this year, of course, and 3% did not know.
Is this sort of, how would you compare this to other communities that you've surveyed?
I'd say the newspaper is a bit higher than what we've seen in other communities.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely the online communication is on the rise everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
So we also asked if they had been to the website in the past year, and 81% say that they have. That's much higher than their norm that we have for other municipalities at 60%. So the website is really serving as a tool, as your residents are heavy users, definitely, of the website. And then among those who have visited the website, we asked them how useful the content was. 86% say it was useful. So again, a very strong rating, a little bit lower than our norm of 93%, but still very strong. And then we had 4 different questions about engagement opportunities. We randomized these in the order that they were presented, so they were never presented in the same order. 86% agree that they would like to provide input to the town for the purpose of influencing decision-making about town projects and services. So clearly a very strong sense of wanting to be engaged and wanting to provide feedback. 64% agree that residents have enough opportunities to provide input into decision-making. This has gone down 10% since 2017, but again, could very likely be a reflection of the COVID environment. We can't have open houses. We can't have people at council meetings. It's different. It is the COVID environment. 62% agree that the town uses input from residents in decision-making. That is statistically on par from what we saw in 2017. And 50% say the town's decision-making about projects and services is reflective of the voice of a majority of residents. So pretty split on that one, but not statistically different from the measure that was taken in 2017. We also had some questions about customer service, and these we can track over time as well. Pretty strong figures here. 89% agree that town staff are courteous, helpful, and knowledgeable. That's very similar to our norm of 90%, and it's remained strong and stable over the last 3 survey waves. 79% say the quality of service from the town is consistently high. That is, practically identical to our norm of 78%. However, it has gone down 10 points since 2017. Again, remembering that we are in the COVID context. The town of Canmore practices open and accessible government. We've got more than 2/3 who agree with that, 77%, identical to our norm, and statistically on par with the last survey wave. 76% agree that town staff are easy to get a hold of when I need them, And that's also identical to our norm of 76% and consistent with 2017. And 74% agree that the town responds quickly to requests and concerns, which is also similar to 72% as our norm.
Could you just remind us how the norm is established?
Sure, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So Mayor Borman, our norm is established from a reservoir of citizen satisfaction or citizen perspective surveys from 26 municipalities that are mainly located in Western Canada, although there are some on the eastern side of Canada as well. And then what we do is we take, I'd say, I think at last count, the norms that are presented in this report represent over 49,000 responses. And then we run an average on that.
I see. And there's no certainty. I mean, the norm doesn't, it's not the norm of similar sized communities, for instance. It's just the norm of various municipalities that you've done this work for.
Correct. The municipalities do range in size, you know, from Vancouver to, you know, we also do Lethbridge, Red Deer, the town of Ponoka, the town of Hinton. So there's some very small ones, but some also very large ones. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So then another couple of questions was about how the town of Canmore is doing when it comes to addressing the issue of human-wildlife interaction. And 66% say that the town of Canmore is doing a good job. And that includes 19% who say a very good job. And this has remained steady and consistent since the last survey wave. And we changed the question to focus more on climate change in 2021 to ask about resident satisfaction with the town of Canmore's programs and services aimed at reducing the community impact on climate change. So as a benchmark here, we've got 67% satisfaction, including 13% who are very satisfied. And of course, we have some tracking on growth and development perceptions. So 53% agree that the town of Canmore keeps citizens informed about how it plans to deal with growth. That's down 11 points since 2017. 49% agree that it's possible for the town of Canmore to grow while maintaining the quality of life that we've come to enjoy in the town. And that's consistent with 2017. 35% agree that the town of Canmore does a good job managing the level of development and growth in the town. And that's down substantially by 16 points since 2017. Again, the context being that it is a snapshot in time and it was done at a time where development was prominently discussed within the community. 31% agree that the town of Canmore is managing growth and development in the Three Sisters area in a responsible manner. And that was a new question that we added on, given the context of the Three Sisters development. And then lastly, there was a new series of questions about diversity and inclusion that were added into the 2021 Citizen Perspective Survey. And so these are benchmark figures for you. 93% of residents agree that they feel a sense of belonging in their own neighborhood. So they definitely feel connected. 89% agree that people in Canmore are friendly and inclusive of all people. 82% agree that people in Canmore feel accepted regardless of their background, identity, or lifestyle. And 68% agree that Canmore needs to address racism and discrimination. Again, another emerging issue that we see across the world today. And so the demographics are also included in this report for you. And they are reflective of the demographics of the town of Canmore, according to Statistics Canada census data. These demographics will look a little bit different for those that participated in the online portion of the engagement process.
Can you just speak to how you ensure that the demographic target is met with the random survey?
Right, so with the telephone survey, we have the ability to establish quotas for age groups, for gender groups within the town of Canmore, so that once we reach our quota and we've filled that group, then we start looking for the other groups, and that's the way that we can manage it. If we overrepresent or underrepresent just a little bit, we can apply statistical weights so that the data is reflective of the population at large.
Great, so it's quite intentional. The methodology is quite intentional to be sure that the results are reflecting a good cross-section of the community.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to bring anything back up or take any questions.
Well, this has been a really interesting presentation. I've been asking questions all along, so I don't have any I've made note of. I'm wondering though if councillors have questions coming out of this presentation or need to have an opportunity to fully digest the information. Don't see any response, so no idea. Are there quite Councillor Sanford?
Thank you, Mayor Borman. If you could go back to the second last slide that you showed. Is that possible?
Absolutely.
There's a indication of household size.
Thank you for your patience, Councillor Sanford.
No problem. There we go. So in the household size, does that include anybody in that household who might be a renter or like in a common amenity home?
Yes, it is the total number of residents that reside in that household.
And so the average or the mean is 2.7?
Correct.
In individual residences. Okay. And the age demographic between 18 and 24 is only 6%?
Correct.
Yeah, that seems very, very low. Wow. Okay. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just curious about the self-selected online survey. You've indicated the results of that will be provided in the online page that Ms. Denache has indicated would go public after this meeting. Are there any I don't know, high-level takeaways in your mind from the results of the self-selected survey, recognizing that it's not scientifically managed?
So Mayor Borman, we typically see more negativity in self-select surveys than we do in random representative sampling. And we definitely did in this case as well. So again, we had 332 responses. That doesn't mean that an individual could not have answered more than once. But the responses across the board were more negative, absolutely. They were a little bit older in terms of the people that responded. They were definitely more female as well. They had fewer children in the household. And ratings for town performance, satisfaction ratings with programs and services, engagement opportunities, that was all lower. In terms of some of the comments that they provided, and for your information, the comments are provided in verbatim commentary, so you can see them all and take them away with you because they are valid comments. The Three Sisters development was mentioned a lot. And along with that was the impact on the wildlife corridor and the influx of tourists and visitors to the town where they have, or they note that they have difficulty accessing facilities and parking. And some also expressing a sentiment that they're losing their small town community feel and are now unsure of what the longer term vision for the town is.
And did you, I'm sorry, I missed what you said. Was it possible for people to respond more than once to the online survey?
Yes, because it was an, Mayor Borman, because it was an open link, they could pull it up on their phone and do it on their phone. They could go to their home computer, and then they could go to their tablet if they wanted to. So if you really wanted to be vocal and have your voice counted more than once, you could. And that's one of the downfalls with having an open link survey. One of the things perhaps for council's consideration in future is to increase your sample size on the telephone survey to 400 for better statistical validity, and so that you can slice and dice the data by subgroups of the population. And perhaps, you can engage the public in different ways instead of doing the online survey because it's not statistically valid.
A good advice, and I'll let administration make a note of that for the next opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mayor.
And we've done the same. We've followed the same format in previous surveys. We've had both approaches have been used each year, if I recall.
You have, and might I add that residents' participation in the telephone survey and in the online portion of the survey was really a big compliment to Robin's work in communicating. This is a valid survey. It's coming out. Please participate. We want to hear your voice to engage residents of the community. So that certainly helped your survey process as well.
Great. Councillor Sanford, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. Since 2014 was the first year, was the sample size 300 then as well?
Yes, that's correct. Councillor Sanford, it was 300. And I have discussed with administration that it would be best to increase that sample size to 400 in future. As your population has grown since 2014, in 2014, maybe 300 was kind of the cap on the feasibility of how many we could complete in a reasonable time frame. But I do believe that you could go up to 400 now.
Mm-hmm. And then is there also a way to validate an online survey using or distributing a code so that people can be tracked by IP address, or there's a code system for that?
That is possible when you have supplied contact lists. So I could identify each individual person if I had a list of every resident of the town of Canmore. And that's the only way that I could do it.
But that still doesn't give you the demographic contribution you get from the telephone survey.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Councillor Sanford.
Councillor Comfort, you have a question.
Sorry, I had to unmute there. So my question, Ms. Rolston, is given COVID, are you finding the results being more anomalous this year in other communities that the firm is surveying? So in other words, given the circumstances out in the world, are people's attitudes more depressed or gloomy or negative, or is there not a substantial change that you would put down to that?
Yes, so Councillor Comfort, we have seen declines in overall satisfaction ratings and trends. Communications, again, being one of them, because the demand is greater for information during a crisis. There are municipalities that have had to struggle to pivot to provide programs and services that were formerly provided through various different channels. And we've had to learn how to adapt. And so have residents of those municipalities. And so have there been some pain points during COVID? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there questions from other members of council for Ms. Ralston? Seeing none, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing the results of your survey. I always find it really interesting and of course very important for council to track these community perspectives. Be nice to do it more frequently, but it's a budget factor, of course.
Absolutely.
And, council did intentionally decide that we should be doing it given it's an election year, and it's good for all of us to have a sense of community perspective, and it'll help so much in the next council's job of approving new budgets, new projects. Yeah, it's a very good process, and we've all had good confidence, high confidence in the work that Ipsos is doing for us in this regard. So thank you so much for working with us on the survey and for being here today to present your findings.
Thank you, Mayor Broman, and thank you, Council. I know this is just one input that's used with a number of different inputs as you continue to make decisions for the town. And if you require any further detail, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thank you so much. We
All
take
right,
you up
thank
on
you.
that.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. Then I'll move on to item E1, Councillor Updates. And just look to council to jump in. Any councillor has a question for any other councillor? I have one for Councillor Mayor on your report on Bow Valley Regional Housing. The first bullet point is about the rent supplement program. And you may not have this this information handy. I'm wondering if you know how many participants or units, I suppose, are included in the rent supplement program?
No, I do not know offhand. Councillor McCallum might know from previous years.
So it was originally, I think before the changes to the rent supplement last spring, there was about 37 households. And then I think we had gone through attrition down to 24 households. So 13 households left the program and were not put back on. But it's my understanding now that, I honestly think this was a budget exercise for the province. They were trying to find ways to save money. So they were cutting people off of their housing over time. And then now that they've met the number, they can continue to pay for housing through the rent supplement program. I also believe that the federal program that they were counting on coming to fruition got sidelined due to COVID. So they have to continue to supply this program. That's what I got.
Okay, so I think you said you think it's around 23, or it went up from that?
It was 37. It went down to, I think, around 24, and now it'll be on the rise again.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Just to add to that, we weren't allowed to put any names on the wait list during that time frame.
Okay. And is there a cap on the number of units that are available?
It is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, it's not about units. It's about dollar amount. There's so much money per month available.
I see. Great, thank you. That was the only question that I had from the council reports. Are there any other questions for fellow members of council? Seeing none.
I just wanted to
Councillor
actually
McCallum.
comment. I was really happy to see that the 7th and 7th project had 4 units, which we knew for Vital Homes, and that 2 of them were 2 bedrooms, which is awesome because normally they are 1 bedrooms. But my one question, Councillor Hillstad, please help me. What does the P in VHP mean? Vital Homes.
I think it's programs. I'm not 100% sure, but that.
At first, I thought it was.
I wondered that myself sometimes, and that's what I was thinking in my head is the Vital Home program. So I could be wrong, but that's what I thought it was.
No, that seems sensible. I'm down with sensible.
Okay. Any other questions for members of council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item F1, the administrative update. Any questions sparked by CAO's office or the reports under municipal services? Recreation services, I have a question. First section around COVID-19 public health orders and the effect to our facilities. So the first bullet point notes that recreation will continue to deliver select certification courses and facility bookings that are exempt from the revised public health order. And do you have off the top of your head what kind of bookings are exempt?
Yeah, so I think that primarily refers to 2 things. One is in aquatics, we have a lot of lifeguards who need recertification. And with the close down and the restrictions a year ago, those recertifications were just extended. People did not have to renew them as part of COVID. This year, that extension to the certifications has not been granted. So when we are ready to open the pool, lifeguards have several certifications that they need to upgrade and have current before they'll be able to work. So there's been an exemption granted to allow courses and testing that gives people those certifications. And the other is a military booking of the climbing gym. I'm not entirely sure of all the details on there, but it is a private use of the climbing gym that has a government exemption for the training that they're doing.
Interesting, huh? So it's just those 2 bookings that are exempt.
And there might be others that are like that.
Sure. At this time,
it would be that kind of nature, yes.
Thanks very much. It helps. And in the economic development section, the discussion around the Main Street pedestrian zone permits received, there was 19 permit applications. Is that fairly comparable to last year, or?
I would assume it is. I don't have the exact number from last year, but I can certainly follow up and confirm that with council.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a lot to me, but could be that there were that many last year.
I think there's always more than you might anticipate, especially because of the way the closure extends here onto 7th Avenue. There's a few other additional businesses that get in on that.
Right. Thank you. Question for corporate services. The first item under finance, the assessment appeal deadline. And it notes 8 complaints in total were received. And off the top of my head, that seems like a low number. Is that about normal or is that low?
That is about normal. We did have a spike last year. So
Okay.
you may recall that last year the number was significant. Ms. Richardson is just checking in the background exactly what that number is from last year, but 8 is a more normal number that we've seen for sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's great. That's
okay.
Good to know. Thank you. Good to see the new planning technician position has been filled. I'm happy to see that happen. Are there any questions under engineering services? I know Mr. Asarte's joined the meeting to answer questions specific to the transportation projects. Councillor Mara.
Thank you, Mayor Borman. I did have a question for Mr. Asarte or Ms. Smithers regarding the Bow Valley Trail intersection. It said it's going according to schedule. I'm just want a refresher on if it's June or July was the completion date.
Final completion end of June. Quite a number of activities will complete earlier in June for the main intersection, but the final completion is for ahead of July 1st.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Since you're here, I'll just ask this question. It just popped in my head. What's your sense of the how people are now responding to the changes in the traffic flow patterns in the downtown core, particularly at the bottom of Main Street where no left turns are permitted? My sense is that drivers in Canmore are starting to observe the changed pattern a little bit more so than that last year.
Yes, as the year wore on, I think so. This is specific to the west end of Main Street left turn restriction. In general, that has been effective with our overall goal of having the traffic on Main Street be local. We want that to be business traffic, not through traffic that's crossing town. We want to reestablish patterns to 10th Street and to the road network around that section of Main Street. And so yes, it was effective with that. That transition was challenging because it had been an established traffic pattern for decades. And so with time, concerns and complaints decreased, with the exception of concerns from people off River Road. There is still, a desire to be able to get better access onto 8th Avenue from that access point. But operationally, after observing it for many, many hours of time, operationally it functions at a reasonable level of service, and access off of River Road is no different from any of the accesses anywhere along 8th where it's challenging to get a break in traffic off of Veterans Way or any of the driveways or laneways that connect in there. It's just that traditionally there's been a stop there, meaning a local access to a small residential has taken priority over the traffic that would back up over the Bow Bridge or been given equal priority. So that's shift in prioritization has left, I think, a number of people feeling, that change is impactful, but operationally it's worked quite well. It's a Band-Aid. The no left is really a Band-Aid until the nature of the west 2 blocks of Main Street can change. If you can imagine it being more paving stone and narrow roadway and made to have a long-term look and feel that allows it to be more of a pedestrian-centric zone. Less through traffic would have a desire to go through there, and you could get away from some of the restrictions and plunking the gates in the middle. So it's a bit of an interim piece, but it's certainly in our mind a better solution than signalizing and again returning to that priority of a side street over the main 8th Avenue traffic flow. That prioritization sends people onto Main Street, and it goes counter to what we're trying to accomplish in getting flow along Bridge Road. And it's consistent with what we're doing right now. The type of pedestrianization and activation of Main Street is possible because those traffic patterns have been reestablished. And so far so good with that flip back again. Definitely a much quieter transition than we had last year when it was the first time we were doing it, and against all those established traffic patterns.
Yeah, it's just my personal observations. It seems there's, like, I use that corridor quite a bit to get from this part of town, the Civic Center, over to the other side where I live, across the river. And certainly the 10th Street access to 8th Avenue works really well. But it's anecdotally, I haven't noticed as many people turning left off of Main Street towards the bridge as there were last fall and perhaps through the winter. So I'm too sure if that was just my
That's certainly the
sense.
case.
That's the
And
case.
with some of the change in signage, it allowed for a bit more enforcement, even if it was warnings for people, and allowed our CMP to have a presence there. So once those changes were made, I think people finally got used to being on 10th and not getting sucked down there unconsciously, and then being frustrated and making the left turn regardless.
Yeah, we all take a while. We're creatures of habit. Councillor Hillstead, you have a question.
Thank you, Mayor Borman. Yes, I have a question about the intersection as well. Just curious, now that all the lights look like they're in, when will they actually be functional?
The commissioning's happening right now as we speak. I just came from a discussion on timing for that. It's a little bit dependent on how the technicians are making out today. Of course, everything comes together before a long weekend. And so, I don't know if, unless we have a high level of confidence, we're probably going to push till after the long weekend to make the actual physical change. And considering the weather, part of what they need to do is get the temporary poles out so they can finish the concrete work. But based on the weather, I think they're going to struggle to get a couple more poor days here before the long weekend. So long-winded answer, but quite likely early next week. Okay, the switch will happen.
And then I'm sure people have noticed there's some footprints in one of the sidewalks from last year's pours, I believe. And I'm just curious, how does that get remediated? Is that going to be they tear up the whole section and report it, or what happens there?
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate and upsetting reality of doing municipal works in public areas. That was quite intentionally done. We've had vandalism like that on a number of our projects. Contractors are responsible for securing the site and ultimately are responsible for fixing that. There's no easy way to patch it. So in addition to the wasted time, extra disruption, wasted materials, and extra cost, this is just a big frustration for the contractor and a cost that goes directly to them. But ultimately, I mean, these things indirectly affect project costs. So really wish the folks wouldn't do that. It's super disruptive and upsetting. Projects are tough enough, but they'll be ripping it out and replacing it. They're just waiting until some of the other adjacent walks are in place. We'll take it out and then form against them and pour.
Thank
you.
Since we've got you here, Mr. Asarte, just quick overview on how things are going along with the Palliser Trail part of the project.
Yeah, work's continuing there. They are progressing on, we have an agreement with the church to finalize the frontage there. So they're getting ready to mobilize into that area. Right now they're working on completing the medians. And so that has the same general timeline as the rest of the project, with an additional 2 weeks for that church frontage work. So that'll complete a little bit closer to the July 1st date.
So that project is also expected to be complete by the end of June, is that right?
Yes, the goal, if we get some good weather, a lot of it is surface works now, so it's just a matter of getting the pour days, is to have all concrete work and all the paths, sidewalks, roadways opened up and operational by July 1st.
Great. And is the intersection of Palliser and Benchlands functioning well now? Is there, I remember there was confusion on part of drivers who were used to having 2 lanes or something, and how's that playing out?
I haven't personally received those. It could be the project team that's dealing with those. Any concerns that any member of the public or council or anyone has, they can relay them to us in the engineering department, engineering@canmore.ca, and or through the web form, and we will address them immediately with the contractor. So at our meeting this afternoon, there were no outstanding traffic accommodation issues that were raised with us. They had all been addressed by the contractor.
Excellent. If there's no other questions for Mr. Asarte, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Councillor.
Back to your work.
Thank you.
I have a few questions or comments under Public Works. Solid Waste Services, I suppose. Firstly, it's great news to see that we're going to be able to distribute the compost now to residents. I recall people asking about that when we started the program, and now we're going to be able to do that. That's really great. Question though is around the extended producer responsibility, and it notes that if I understand it, the producer would be responsible for all of the packaging that typically has been challenging for municipalities to deal with, and it includes paper, cardboard, plastic, metal containers, etc. Does it also include the styrofoam packaging and plastic wrap that we've struggled with for so long?
I believe it does. I can confirm that.
Yeah, that would be good news if it does. Thanks.
Yeah.
Councillor Comfort.
Yeah, I too am really happy to see that coming into solid waste, that the producers now will take more responsibility. It's very convoluted though. It's not going to happen overnight. And Councillor Sanford and I attended a couple of meetings, conventions, I guess, and where this was discussed at length. And every municipality, every jurisdiction seems to have its own set of rules and set of issues. So it's not going to be something that happens overnight. That being said, it's a very important step in figuring out how to deal with our waste, solid waste. So it's good to see that, as usual, our solid waste services are right on top of this, and it's very important.
As usual.
Yeah, they're a great team for sure. And in fact, sorry, just Mr. Camo just messaged me that with regard to those styrofoam shell packages, the details are still not completely understood yet at the municipal level, and it depends on the model and the materials that are going into that packaging, that it could be unlikely about styrofoam. So I just wanted to correct that.
Great, thank you. Well, keep our fingers
as we go.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have a question about the household hazardous waste. that the province had just announced they will no longer fund the disposal of hazardous waste. And it says that because they have to reduce, they have a reduction in the Swan Hills landfill. It's reaching the end of its life. So I'm just trying to remember here where, the province has been paying for the disposal costs directly and no funds were given to the town for this program. The province has never reported on the disposal costs and this remains unknown. And then it continues. This is something that could fall through the cracks and it's really important. These are poisons and toxins that get into our system and can get into the groundwater and all of that stuff. So it'd be nice to have currently it says we have a $45,000 budget for this program. We may need more though, I think, as the province continues to cut costs for these sorts of programs. So it'd be good to know that sort of have a follow-up on this down the road or an ongoing report on how these materials are being looked after, taken care of.
Yes, definitely. We can provide more information as it becomes known. It's a tough one with the province because they were paying for the disposal costs directly. So we don't actually know the true cost of that subsidy. But we do suspect that we are more than likely to be able to cover that budget shortfall for this year. As it says in the report, it should be about $20,000 additional. But I agree going forward, once we have a better sense of what we're in for in that regard, we would be including that in future budget updates for council.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions for administration in regards to the administrative report? Or for that matter, attachment 1, the Alpine helicopters report? Seeing none. Anything to do with council resolution action list? And seeing none, I believe that will bring me to item J, and I'll move the committee of the whole be adjourned. Those in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned. See y'all later.